Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Evil Dead Rise, starring Lily Sullivan, Alyssa Sutherland, Morgan Davies, Gabriel Eccles, Noel Fisher, and Jaden Daniels, directed by Lee Cronin, a director I do not know very well. Now, I went to this movie twice, and I'm wondering if my opinion has gone lower since. We'll find out when I go watch this movie, or talk about it, I'll say. Let's get into it. We open with the New Line Cinema logo turning red, and we get a demonic presence following up to Teresa while reading a book, and Caleb playing with his flying toy, I'll say, while Teresa asks him to check on Jessica, as he is the biggest asshole to his girlfriend, while Jessica is possessed by the evil dead, and Teresa wants to get out of the cabin. They're staying in, which, why did she come in the first place? As we find out at the end of the movie, she didn't want to, as it was forced on her, and it was an interesting but not a very good choice, in my opinion, as she was forced to go. And she gets killed by a demonic presence, by a demonic Jessica, I'll say. And I don't like these people, but I do like when the title of the movie comes on screen with the creepy music going on, as that was awesome. While this is starting off a little unlikable, the characters, I mean, with the characterization issues with it's having, we pick up one day earlier with Beth, played by Lily Sullivan, checking to see if she's pregnant, and it tells us it was an and it doesn't tell us until later in the film, and as it was obvious from this scene, that she is pregnant. And come on, how many times have I seen horror movies pulling that trick off? That happens to be quite a few, actually, as this is totally not original. She goes back to her sister's apartment, and that sister Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland, and I keep wondering if she's related to Donald Sutherland, but I don't think so. She's Australian, so. Along with her kids, Bridget, played by Gabrielle Eccles, Danny, played by Morgan Davies, and Cassie, played by Nell Fisher, as they're some of the dumbest characters in movie history. And, well, Cassie cuts off the head of a toy baby while Bridget is asked by a couple of neighbors, Jake and Scott, funny, to watch some Freddy Krueger movies. Even the shitty ones, which was hilarious because there is some shitty ones out there. Go back to that retrospective and you'll see what I mean. While Beth scares the shit out of Ellie, while the apartment complex is going to get destroyed, while Beth is told by her kids that Ellie thinks of her as a groupie, despite she's a guitar engineer. As Ellie tells Beth while the kids go get pizza about Ellie and her ex-husband Jay's divorce, and Beth didn't know because she was too busy, I'll say, for 2 months. And this dialogue is badly written because how many times have I caught things like that in the beginning of the movie? And how irritatingly obvious as it is, as it looked that way and it wasn't very funny. An earthquake happens, Bridget drops the pizza, and Cassie drops the drinks, while Danny goes in a in a ground hole, I'll say, in the parking lot, where Danny finds a book of the Evil Dead, as well as a record from vinyl, or whatever the fuck it's called nowadays. And he takes it up, and he'll hear it later in the movie, which made me think this motherfucker is dead. Meanwhile, Ellie and Beth get to neighbors like Gabriel and Mr. Fonda to help find the kids as Mr. Fonda tries to call his cat down. And the kids make it up safely as the script was badly written. Like, they do not need to be in the elevator after the fucking earthquake. But there is some shots that are fantastic. While this isn't Sam Raimi directing but the shots are just like him. For example, the eye of the door, which worked great in my opinion. Bridget asks Danny to get rid of the book by morning while Beth puts Cassie in the bathtub and she feels her stomach from the baby. And why the fuck is she not telling anybody about the Beyond? This is beyond me. There's so many things the script does that is questionable. Like Danny playing the damn record and cursing his mother, which makes me think he's the stupidest character that turns his own mother into one of the fucking Evil Dead. I mean, Jesus Christ. Ellie turns into one of the Evil Dead, go figure, while in the elevator, and the wires carry her and put it in her, which has got to be fucking painful as it almost choked the life out of her. Ellie comes into the house and frightens Beth and her kids by cooking eggs in the bloodiest way possible. And while they put candles on whilst Ellie is saying some things evil would say, while Beth and Danny try to get her out of there. But unfortunately, there's no escaping calls over Gabriel and Mr. Fonda to call 911 as they see her lying down and they pray for God to make her better. And we've seen this plot how many times as the story is not original? Beth says her goodbyes to Ellie until her phone randomly going straight to the voicemail to see her waking up, and they put her in the bathtub while she's freezing up to feel better, and she gets out of it and screams for 30 seconds, which hurt my ears as she gets out of the bathtub and says Mommy is with the maggots now, and turns into something evil and attacking Beth and calling her kids titty-sucking parasites. While trying to stab someone with drillers in one of their eyes. I think it was Bridget? I forget who it was. And don't do what the last movie did. And give me another phobia of eyeballs as she is going to attack again and tries to decide who to attack until Gabriel comes in and bites his eyeball out. It spits in Jake's mouth, which is so Evil Dead 2 material, which looked like it could be copyrighted, which is kind of wrong in so many levels. I don't even want to get started on that shit. And she kills Scott and Mr. Fonda and turns them evil, and the shot's what is saving the movie for me disliking it when I caught more on my second viewing than the first viewing. Bridget says it's Danny's fault, in which it is. Hell, he even said that for Christ's sakes, as he shows Beth the book and record, and she sings a lullaby to Cass. And by Beth, I'm talking about the evil mother. What the fuck was her name again? I don't fucking care. And the record, while she sings a lullaby to Cassie, and she says to her father is coming back to them, which I call bullshit at this point, and almost lets her in, which is bad enough while Bridget checks her face and is bleeding and gets sick, as well as turning into something evil. And how is that possible? It's something I don't get how that's possible, because of her bleeding and feeling pain, and that's another point I can call bullshit, as she's eats a glass cup, which is disturbing as hell, because I can't make sense of it at all. As Bridget attacks Beth with the cheese grater, and it tries to get to be so bloody to the point I do think it can take. I don't think I could take it anymore, honestly. Cassie stabs Bridget in the mouth, and it kind of kills her. While the score in this movie is something demonic, but unfortunately, I'm not a fan of the sound of it, like in Insidious, which has a sequel coming out in July, in which I have to review because I've reviewed the previous movies. Go back to those. Beth wants to listen to the vinyl of The Curse to get rid of it once and for all, and the voice on the vinyl didn't sound the same as the original movie, as I'm guessing the actor is dead. But that's no excuse, as you could have recorded that shit in the vinyl. Meanwhile, Ellie, that's her name, finds her way in thanks to the cat, and I brought up earlier as it shows her a way into the apartment, and either it killed the cat off screen, or hopefully it didn't kill the cat, because that would have pissed me off. Even if they showed it, which thank God they didn't, as Bridget wakes up and stabs Danny to death and vomits on him like in 28 Days Later, while Ellie enters the room while listening to the vinyl, and Beth sees her coming by the mirror, and Ellie comes in, and Ellie opens her mouth to let the record tell her one last thing, and Beth stabs Ellie in the neck and keeps fighting off with Beth as she figures out she has twins coming and almost gets rid of them, but Cassie throws the scissors at Beth as Beth stabs her in the head near the eyeball. Ugh. And Beth gets her and Cassie out of the apartment, and at this point, I was getting kind of bored, but I'm not checked out of it, far from it. Beth gets the shotgun and almost shoots their way out, but instead Ellie sneaks up and Beth and Cassie and shoots Ellie in the leg and the arm while trying to bullshit her way out as possible. And Beth and Cassie are told the evil dead are dead by dawn, which makes sense in the ways that if you're being evil and dead, you're alive and demonic looking, and if the sun rises, they lay back down in the ground. So I get that as well as I accept it. The dead are saying there's no way out while Beth and Cassie are in the elevator, and as it goes down and opens up, we get that shot from The Shining where an elevator filled with blood coming out of the elevator. And what cracked me up was Cassie was waking up saying, "Am I dead?" which made me laugh. And she and Beth try to get out of the apartment complex, and it gets the beeper out as they get stuck, and the dead are coming after them combined as a monster. And at first, they hide, but the monster does catch them as the garage door closes, and the monster catches Cassie and almost kills her with a fucking chainsaw. Good God, man. And Beth saves her life and is almost crushed to death until Cassie saves her life. And Beth gets the chainsaw, and Cassie turns on the crusher and puts the monsters in it to kill it off. And Beth cuts Ellie in the head and puts her head in the crusher. And they get the hell out of there, of the parking garage, on the day as the day picks up, and Jessica FaceTiming Teresa, telling her she's going to be at the cabin with her. She's going to the cabin with her, I should say. And Caleb and the evil dead possesses her as this movie ends. And this climax was bloody for damn sure, as this movie tries too hard to be bloody like the last film, but it does a better job than the last film, in my opinion. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 5.1 out of 10. I do like the shots of the movie despite it's not directed by Sam Raimi, but I felt his fingerprints on the shots while the characters are stupid in this movie to the point I don't really like them too much. There were some things I've seen so many times. For example, the story with the dysfunctional family has been done so many times, and like Beth being pregnant and not telling anyone till later in the movie, versus the whole divorce story, which was never explained. And don't get me started with the eyeball going in the mouth, like this series has done before, as I get tired of it after a while, and it tries so hard to be the bloodiest movie to death. But it's kind of successful, but it's overdone in this movie. This movie is not original, as it tells the same story as the previous movies with really bad characterization, and it's a mild recommendation. Like, at the end of the day, it was just okay. But at best, but keep in mind, what saved the movie from me disliking it was the shots, as it felt very Sam Raimi, despite it's not directed by Sam Raimi. It's directed by a different director. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this Evil Dead retrospective, and until we get another one, they're gonna get you, not another peep. Time to go to sleep.